Yo, JD here, and as you can see, we are back on F1 22 as always. And in today's video, we are following on with Singapore. You can see loading in my recent Singapore setup, which I had just uploaded along with the hot lap, and making a few changes to it. So you can see adding a bit more rear wing for more stability, increasing the rear suspension for more rotation, and lowering the tyre pressures, because this is something you typically need to do online compared to a TT set, which I have discussed before. So starting from last, and let's see how we do. So we're going to be showing you the entire race, because it did turn out to be quite an intense one. And as always, thank you so much to everyone who has been joining these hobbies, especially my YouTube members. Some new extra rotation members up on the screen here. And if you want a priority invite into these hobbies, because they do fill up quite quickly, then you can be a guaranteed invite if you're part of the YouTube membership, along with updating or uploading my updated setups, and also currently a 30% discount on one-to-one coaching with myself as well. And as you can see, as usual, just avoiding the carnage, but we actually did get caught up with the AlphaTauri of Razak here, but managed to get through unscathed, and now we've made up 8 positions. So really, this race just shows that Singapore, you do have to be quite strategic and patient, because it is just such a long lap. The tyre wear and tyre temperatures are quite a big issue, so you really do have to pick your moments wisely and knowing when to be aggressive. So I'm going to go down the inside here, and luckily this guy gives you space, hits the wall, but then pinballs back into me, but then we managed to get the move done. Now up into P11, the Mercedes has got all out shape, so we're just going to try and make sure we get through his ghost, which we have done quite nicely, as someone up ahead of me, iRacing 4, or has already run out of ERS deployment, which is quite an impressive feat, as General Jake has a pretty big lead at this stage of the race, a driver who has definitely been improving quite a lot on this game. So coming through into turn 1, we decided to miss the curb here, unlike the time trial. Make sure to hit a nice late apex, and you can see we're being quite careful with the ERS, because it is very difficult to recover the battery around here. So making sure we use it wisely, and that's typically the case in open lobbies, especially around this circuit. A lot of people are a bit too aggressive with the inputs with the steering, with the throttle, which then makes them overheat the tyres quite quickly. And that's why this is a track that's always been very good for me, because you do need to be pretty smooth around it to be successful. So we get that move done quite nicely. Used a bit of ERS just to deter him from going around outside, as what we got to hit. So go down the inside. Does he leave me room on the inside? The turning circle could quite make that happen. And yeah, please let me know if you want to see the full race, because this is going to be a bit of a longer video. But as always usually like to show the full thing rather than skip parts out, because I think a lot of people can learn from those things. As we go around the outside of his house and get the inside for the left. So a bit feisty going through there, but we managed to get the move done as he tries to go down the inside here. So not sure if that was intentional or not, but he has ultimately paid the price for that, as someone else has gone off here. So now we're up into P7, and coming out of this corner, the leader is already going through into turn 1. So now we've got a bit of clear air. Let's see what we can do here. So coming up through into here, the gap is about 1.6 seconds, and you can still see that we have been quite cautious with the ERS deployment, as he now gets a 3-second time penalty. So I'm not using any of the ERS down here, because since everyone is running such high downforce, it's just so hard to recover, because the car's having to work so much harder in a straight line. And especially since we raised the rear wing as well, just to give ourselves a little bit more stability and protecting those rear tyres. But you can kind of get away with not running it as much as possible. The goal was really trying to have a good pace without using the ERS around the circuit. You can see with our driving style and with the steering just being incredibly smooth, because if you can keep the tyres a little bit cooler, that is going to generate much more grip. So this is one of the times we need to be aggressive and go down the inside here. Did we get the move done? Yes, we do. So really had to kind of pull that off. Otherwise, we wasted quite a bit of ERS for nothing, as we've done a purple middle sector. Now coming up here, the guy up ahead of me, or the two guys up ahead of me, are some very fast drivers themselves. So really wanted to make sure I tried to get within their DRS zone. You can see we actually hit the sausage curb there, which I told you not to do on my hot lap and set video, and definitely don't want to do that for this one. Going through turn 1 in the time trial, I did risk it, but when I race online, I like to try and give it a bit more of a kiss rather than a mount. It does prove to be a little bit more consistent, as we just missed out on the DRS here. But you can see again, we're not going to use any of the battery going down this straight, because I knew that we were coming up to probably some slower cars than the people around us, and you can just make up so much time during the courses. These two guys are going side by side over here, and what has happened here? Someone has just been squeezed into the wall. Logical Terror squeezing the Red Bull here, but we get the move done on him, and his red light is flashing as well. So once you go into that red light zone, it's very difficult to recover it. So what we're going to do, we're going to go down the inside again. No, we don't. So just doing a little bit of a dummy here. Let's see if we can get a good exit. We're thinking about trying to go down the inside here, but I think we're a bit too far away, so we decided to turn off that overtake button quite early. And you can see we haven't really used the ERS that much from the previous app, and we only saved about 1%. So coming through into here, just absolutely pushing the Alfa Romeo along, and it's pretty much all in a single file from this point onwards. As you can see, the slap bus is getting away a little bit up ahead, so really in a bit of a rush to get past this guy here now. As we come through here trying to get a good exit. Are we going to use the ERS here? Yes, we do, but don't really want to be overtaking him into here, so we're just going to let him have this corner and set ourselves up quite nicely for the straight that is soon to follow. So using the ERS here and trying to get a good exit coming off this corner. He goes a little bit wide, and using it now and coming through into here, I'm going to try and turn it off as early as we can. As these two go side by side, so he's kind of boxed in the Red Bull behind me, as someone else up ahead of me, R2G3366, which sounds like a droid from Star Wars or something like that, is also having his red light flashing. Another YouTube member of mine, and yeah, we're just going to take our time, try not to let the slap bus get too far ahead in this race. So let's see what we do here. We're going to go down the inside. This time we actually do, so being a bit more aggressive, leaving some room on the exit. I knew we didn't have that much ERS to play with, as it's almost going free side by side in here. It was a bit dangerous from the car behind, because they could easily squeeze into the wall, but now we get the move done and we are up into P3. Now the goal is to try and get within the DRS zone of the slap bus without using that much ERS. So try and rely more on the raw pace to get within the DRS zone. So that's exactly what I'm trying to do here. You can see we are closing in a little bit and coming through into this one. Let's see what we do. It's not a purple last sector. Still not using the battery coming down here, so looks like he's using a little bit just to try and maybe stay ahead of me. As he goes a little bit wide here, and on the exit, do we get a good exit? Yes, we do. So using a bit here just to see if we could get in the DRS zone, which I think we managed to do quite successfully. And the gap to General J is about 7 seconds at this point. So let's keep an eye on how that gap develops, because he's definitely someone who has improved quite a lot on this game. But yeah, like I said earlier, Singapore, even if you have the speed, sometimes actually driving a bit too fast will really overheat your tyres, and if you overheat your tyres around here, then it's going to be very, very difficult to recover them. So that's what I was kind of going through my mind right now, is just to try and be as smooth as we can in the steering, smooth as we can on the throttle, also in the way that we're releasing the brake as well. So you can see just very, very smoothly, super smooth on the power. Don't need to be in a rush to get to 100%, because sometimes just because you can get to 100% doesn't mean it's going to be the fastest way. So sometimes you just need to be a bit more patient with the car, and you can see on this lap we actually have closed in quite a bit on General Jake here, so wasn't in an absolutely huge rush to overtake the Sap bus. So I'm just kind of letting him kind of overheat his tyres a little bit at this stage, as the Red Bull behind does set the fastest lap of the race. So we're just going to set ourselves up nicely here. So taking a bit of a different line, getting the power a bit earlier, using a bit of the DRS just to get as close as we possibly can. And on the exit of this corner, we're going to have to use a little bit here. And let's see, does he defend? So we turned us off quite early, so it's going to be a side-by-side moment coming to here. And we're going to go around the outside going into here to get the inside for here. And couldn't quite get back on the racing line. But now we're up into P2 with a gap about 5 seconds up ahead. So let's see what our pace is like in the clear air, and see if we can maybe even pull away from these guys behind. So throughout the next lap, I'll just talk through the braking points of what I was thinking. And as I said before, sometimes less really is more, especially on a track like this where you need to really focus on committing with the minimum speed, but then you need to be very delicate with the rest of your inputs. And I think the problem a lot of people do around this circuit is that they try a bit too aggressively with the inputs, and all that's going to do is overheat their tyres and make the tyres wear out a lot quicker as well. So as we come through into here, the gap is now 3.7 seconds, so we've almost halved that gap in 2 laps. So General Jake is definitely a fast driver, but I think he might be potentially overheating his tyres, and the set we're running as well is pretty nice on the tyre temperatures with the minimum pressures and increasing that rear wing as well. And you can see we're not using any of the ERS, and we are almost breaking out of this DRS zone here now. So let's see what we can do for the rest of it. As coming through here, you want to be using as much of the track as possible, so aiming for that back box, kissing the very last part of here, so it just allows you to get your wheel straighter sooner. Make sure you clip this inside, which you miss ever so slightly. Make sure you clip this curb as much as possible. Nice and patient on the power here, trying to keep your wheel completely straight before you turn in for this one. Unwind the steering wheel first, then you go on the power, and you can see the traction we get is very nice because of that. Just after the 100 meter board, clip this curb on the inside. Be careful of track limits on this exit. Keep it nice and tight to the left hand side. So again, nice late apex. Try and kiss these curves rather than mounting them too much. Same for this one. You don't want to be mounting this one. Get into the middle of the track. Nice late apex for here. Keep the wheel straight. Nice late apex for this one. So slow in, fast out for here. And you can just see we've actually managed to break the DRS as General Jake now does decide to pit as well and come across the line. It's a 40.7 as the Sap bus has also pitted, so the Red Bull has stayed out 1.7 seconds behind, and Goxie, another very fast driver, seems to be not within a threatening delta, so we can afford to stay out a little bit longer than him. But since Singapore is such a long lap, having a lap fresher tyres is actually quite a big advantage around here. So I'm going to try and extend this stint as much as possible. And you can see, looks like the Red Bull behind is using a bit of ERS to close back in, but we're not really going to be threatened by that. We're going to keep our ERS because you can see, even when we haven't been using any, we've only really been able to save maybe 1 or 2% a lap. So if you do get yourself caught on very low on the battery around here, then if you need to defend or catch someone, then you could be in big trouble. So I'm just giving it everything I can without using the battery at this stage of the race. Let's say if we pull away in this last sector where the battery isn't really going to be a big advantage. So about 1.2 seconds at the moment, keeping it nice and smooth as steering. And you can see going through this section, we definitely have a little bit of the upper hand. So gaining about a tenth or two through here. I imagine that he's probably going to be boxing at the end of this lap, which he does indeed. He's my teammate. So if we actually pitted then, he would have had to continue for another lap as well. But I just want to have the freshest tyres as possible, because the undercut is going to be something, but it's not going to be astronomical or anything at all. So going to keep pushing as hard as we can. You can see we're still only saving about 1 to 3% of the battery pack as coming through into here, aiming for that black box again. Try hit a nice late apex, and you can see my teammate has come out about 1 second behind the slap bus, so the undercut wasn't too big. And I just knew that having 1 to 2 lap fresher tyres, or 2 lap fresher tyres in General Jake and the slap bus, that's going to be quite a big advantage at the end. So 23.5 seconds. Let's see how much he does close in coming towards the end of the lap, just to get a bit of an idea. And yeah, so far we've driven pretty much a perfect race. As I said before, this is a track where sometimes actually pushing as hard as you can isn't always the best thing. It does reward consistency and managing your car much more. As you can see, going through here, he's gained about maybe 3 tenths, or now he's gained about half a second going through that last sector. So we're going to go into the pits, keeping within just about the white lines, and that was a pretty good pit entry. I think that was pretty much bang on the speed we needed to do. Got an optimal pit stop, and iRacing has decided to leave, maybe going back to iRacing. And coming on to here, we're on the soft tyres, and let's see how much time we have potentially lost. So the SAP bus, that's a fast up rate of 39.5, and I think it's controlling it for me as we come out here. So yeah, we've got undercuts a bit, but really isn't too bad. And with 4 laps to go around this circuit, that is quite a lot of mileage that you still have to do. So we're going to stay aboard again, and since we have been so conservative with the battery, it now does give me a lot more of an opportunity to use it for any potential overtakes. And I didn't realise, but I was actually quite low on fuel here, so you can see we're on 0.01 of the fuel, and so we're going to have to maybe try and do something about that coming towards the end of the race. So the goal now is to try and get within the DRS zone of this lead train by the end of the lap, and you can just see going through this middle sector how much time already we are gaining, as my teammate has now got up into P2. The Slap Bus and General Jake do have 2 lap older tyres than myself, so we should be having quite a big grip advantage at this stage of the race. So got to try and get this overtake done as soon as we possibly can. And coming through into here, staying in the middle of the track, kissing this curb in the exit, and it looks like we're already within the DRS zone. You can just see how much more grip and speed that we do have at this stage of the race. So going to be trying to get as close as we possibly can, as my teammate is trying to fight for the lead here. So carrying all the speed possible. Coming through into here, a little bit argy-bargy as my teammate's red light is flashing, so I know that probably my strongest rival in this race has no ERS to play with. So come for the exit here. Do we use any of the battery? The answer is no, so we're just going to let these guys waste it, as General Jake now has pretty much no ERS himself, as well as the leader. So I know that I can take a bit more time here as go around outside sub bus, and we're going to go around the outside of General Jake as well. Go into it. Does he leave us room on the outside? Yes, he does. Using a bit of the ERS, because I know he has nothing to use. And managed to get 2 in 1 there. And let's see if we can close onto the back of my teammate. I know he's going to be much slower in a straight line now because of his battery. And we do have a lap fresher tyres than him as well. So let's see. Don't want to leave it too late because we do have a bit of a fuel issue here. So yeah, definitely don't want to be losing it too late. You can see we are making up just a little bit of time, especially for this last sector where I felt we were the strongest around this circuit. So coming through these last 2 corners in particular, slow in, fast out, and you can see how much time we've just gained going through into there. So again, don't need to be too much of a hurry here, because in a straight line I knew he was going to be struggling a lot, and you will see the difference in the soft tyres of how quickly we actually pull away from the Sat Bus and General Jake, who are pretty decent and fast drivers themselves. So using a bit here now just to give ourselves a little bit closer with a couple of laps to go, just in case we do run out of fuel. And you can see we've actually gained quite a bit of time in this first sector. His red light is still flashing, so I knew if I could get him in the DRS zone, it should be a fairly comfortable pass, but I didn't want to leave it absolutely too late. So I really want to try and get onto the back of him, maybe get in the DRS by the end of this lap here. So decided to turn it up quite a bit here. You can see using the ERS again, and you can see how much we actually do gain in a straight line because of that, doing a double purple first sector. And looks like there's a ghost car that's coming up towards him here, so I was really hoping that that wouldn't be giving him the DRS. As coming through this last sector, I really wanted to try and get within the DRS zone for the next lap. So coming up through here, we're using the ERS, and I think he's going to get the DRS from this ghost car. Going across the line, do a 38.4, so quite a bit faster. And looks like he might be getting the DRS from this car again. So he's got a double dose of the DRS, which definitely doesn't help me. But still have quite a bit of the ERS on board. So we're not using anything, or we're using just a little bit here just to get ourselves a bit of momentum. And now we are within that all-important 1 second window. As his ghost car seems to be at the perfect pace to still give him the DRS, which was quite annoying at a stage. But with the tyres degrading more and more, it should be swinging more and more into my favour. So I knew in the last sector that's where I was the strongest. So we've got another dose of the DRS here. So let's see if he gets that from the car up ahead as well. And I don't think he actually does. So I think he was a little bit too far behind there. So it's really through this sector that we need to be as close as we possibly can, because there is absolutely no guarantee. If you get a poor exit, then didn't want to do all this work for nothing. So coming through it here, just making sure we get as close as we can onto starting to find up. And if you look at the gap behind, look how much we pulled away just because of those fresher tyres, of how much of a difference. But the problem is we've got so many ghost cars up ahead of us. I feared that that would be giving him the DRS, but he has gone out a little bit wide here, which he does get the DRS once again. So coming through into here, luckily now this car I think he's going to overtake him, so he's not going to get the DRS for this main straight. And now we need to be as close as we possibly can going down this main straight. So making sure we get a really good exit of here. Still have quite a bit of the battery. So now let's see the difference between the batteries. So what does he do? Goes to the inside, but with the battery we have, we're going to get back on the racing line. And that is us up into P1. But the problem is that you can see we're struggling quite a bit on the fuel. So I wanted to try and put as much as a gap as I could between myself and my teammate, just in case we started to run out of fuel going into the last sector, which is something I haven't actually experienced yet on this game as the Aston Martin spins around here. So just go put as much distance as we possibly can now, and you can see getting some really good traction coming off this corner. But then coming to the last sector, this is where I need to try and maximize it as much as I possibly can. And you can see the gap is still about 0.6 of a second. We're going to go through this ghost car here. So luckily he wasn't in the way coming through this section. You can see the gap is about 0.7 of a second. It's going up, but as we come out this penultimate corner, I noticed that the power was going down. So the power was definitely going down, but thankfully we were too close to the line. And that is our last to first at Singapore. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed that. Hopefully you learned something as well. Thank you so much to my YouTube members for joining in this lobby. And I will be catching you very, very soon. Enjoy the weekend. Peace.